In 2010, Fortune magazine named Arkansas-based Walmart the world's largest corporation, the whole world. It's also the world's largest private employer, employing over 2 million people worldwide, and a lot of them are women. So imagine you're a female Walmart employee, and you heard the news this week that the Supreme Court ruled in favor of your employer when it threw out the largest sex discrimination lawsuit in history. Essentially, the court said that the class action of women suing Walmart was just too big to bring to trial, and the women could not demonstrate a nationwide policy within Walmart that discriminated against them as a class. But this decision doesn't just affect women who work at Walmart. Joining us now is Jami Floyd, a lawyer and award-winning legal affairs journalist who covered Walmart for almost 8 years while she was at ABC News. Jami, it's really nice to see you.
Nice to be here.
You interviewed the plaintiffs in this case back in 2001, and you wrote in our blog that you knew that this case was destined for the Supreme Court. How did you know?
Well, we knew then that there were millions of women working at Walmart and that it was a class action suit, the biggest class action suit ever filed in American history. And to be a class action, you have to certify the class, which is legalese for find something that you have in common. That's a lot of people to find something that you have in common. And even then, the lawyers acknowledged that that was going to be the first hurdle they'd face. Now, they managed to succeed at the trial court level in California. They managed to succeed on appeal. But then they got to the U.S. Supreme Court. The other reason we knew they'd get there is this was Walmart. Mm-hmm. And they don't take things lying down. They weren't going to take this one lying down. This was potentially millions, if not billions of dollars, if you're talking 1.5 million potential plaintiffs. So it was going to go all the way up.
There were two headlines I found very interesting about this. One said, women lose in Walmart ruling, and another one said, Walmart wins, workers lose. Who lost here, women or workers as a group?
Well, I tend to see it more as a case that is about workers, but half the workforce now in the United States is composed of women. So really, when you talk about women's rights, you talk about potential discrimination claims, you talk about workers, a lot of the time you are talking about women. And so it's a bad day for anyone who might want to proceed as a class, in a class action, because the Supreme Court has essentially raised the bar for what it takes to qualify as a class. In other words, to sue as a group. The language that Justice Scalia used in his majority opinion is commonality, finding something in common. It's become a lot harder to define yourself as a common group. Just being a group of women isn't enough.
What's also interesting about this case is the case couldn't proceed once they got to that point. So the merits of the sex discrimination case were never even discussed.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about the merits of that case from what you covered in your years covering Walmart.
Well, it's really important to understand that Walmart has never denied the underlying merits of the case. In the 10 years that they've been litigating against this class action, they've always dealt with these women on a procedural basis. They've always argued with the women about whether or not they should be permitted to proceed as a class, and never have we gotten down to the merits of the claim. The women say we were discriminated against. We don't get equal pay. We are not promoted in the same numbers, and never has the case gotten to the merits. We haven't yet gotten to trial on the underlying claims that these women have. They say we have statistical proof. We have a sociologist who studied Walmart who says that there is a culture of discrimination, and we have our own anecdotal stories of what has happened to women in 400 stores across the country. None of that's really been presented in court for a fact finder to determine whether the merits have merit. Walmart has always made this about that primary issue. And so while many people are very upset about the U.S. Supreme Court's decision, this was the issue they were given to decide.
Jami, does this ruling apply to all class actions?
The Supreme Court lays down the law of the land. So this class action decision is not just about Walmart. It's not just about the Walmart women. This is about class actions against any business, anywhere, from this point forward. Right now, the U.S. Supreme Court has another case for next term sitting on the docket that they have to consider. It is a petition having to do with Big Tobacco. Big Tobacco lost the case below, and they want the U.S. Supreme Court to consider whether the class action can stand. And the U.S. Supreme Court was waiting for what? The Walmart decision. So now it will be considered whether or not the Walmart decision affects the next big class action in that Big Tobacco case. And there are other cases coming down the pike as well, all to be affected by this decision.
One group that probably was not upset about this ruling, corporate America.
No, they're probably going to sleep pretty well after this ruling, right?
A lot of people talk about this being a pro-business court.
Yeah.
There's been a lot written about this. And I was sharing with you before we started the conversation that I read an article where someone said it's not so much pro-business as it's an anti-lawsuit, the conservatives in the courts. What do you think about that?
It's a very interesting assessment. This is especially the conservative majority of this court, a court that does not look kindly on class actions, never did. Scalia in particular has written before about class action, so to have him author this opinion, no surprise. It is also not a court that has looked kindly on discrimination lawsuits against big business. So together, to have this size class action, a large corporation, as we've said, the largest private employer, and a discrimination action, that's a very interesting assessment.
Let's bring it back to the people involved. What's next for these women?
These women have to go back to the drawing board. The Walmart decision and the U.S. Supreme Court have splintered this class forever. They cannot proceed in the way that they were. They cannot proceed as 1.5 million women. They can sue as smaller regional classes. They can sue perhaps store by store, state by state perhaps, but they have to rethink how to proceed. Perhaps they can sue as individuals. Walmart has to be careful what it wishes for. 1.5 million lawsuits, that's nothing to sneeze at. But chances are the women will regroup in smaller class groups, and we're probably looking at a whole lot more litigation against Walmart. This case is not over until it's over. That's what the lawyers promised, and that's what I think we'll see to come.
Jami Floyd, thank you so much.
My pleasure.